for having us, Sabrina. This is so awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and we get to be outside, as you can see behind us under this beautiful setting my daughter-in-law set up for us. So I'm gonna kind of do a pan of this gorgeous setting that she did for us.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, and then everybody that's here, Chef Tucker.
Hi, everyone.
And Mandy.
Hello.
And so, yeah, and we've got everything just set up all beautiful.
So they can hear us.
I'm excited.
I was going to say this.
So, yeah, we are going to serve wine, and Nick, we'll let you take it away.
Very good. Thank you. So I'm going to put everyone on mute. And so if you want to ask a question or whatever, just come off mute and or send me a chat and Susan will pick it up. But it's a pleasure to be here. It's a little warm out here in California, which is a good thing. But we are just right now in the condition of the vineyard. So we're just between set and veraison. So this is when the berries, so the flowers have occurred and we've got small little green berries right now and they're sizing up. And tomorrow I'll probably put a couple of photos up on my Instagram of what the condition of the vineyard is. I'll leave my Instagram and Facebook and YouTube address at the end of this presentation that you can log in on and see what's going on in the vineyards. I usually put up something once in the morning and once in the evening. So if you get bored, you can always unfriend me, no problem. But I'm here today. I'm really happy to be here with Okoboji is such an amazing supporter for us. And Debbie is representing Okoboji today and Susan McElroy, who works with me. And the two of them have put this thing together with Sabrina. So I really appreciate Sabrina allowing access to you folks, to her clientele. So what I've got today is Susan's given me a list of wines. I'm just going to make sure that everyone is here. Everyone is here. Make sure that I've admitted everybody in. I didn't mean it to be a Zoom meeting, a webinar, but apparently it is. I am recording this, so it'll be on, I'll download it onto a YouTube account tomorrow, and then I'll send the link to Sabrina and Debbie as well. So you can watch this again at your leisure if you would like. What I'm going to do is run through some wines here. Just excuse me while I load up. What I'm also going to do, hey, what's going on here? All right, so some of you have got 3 packs or 6 packs, and some of you have 12 packs. I'm going to talk through some of the wines in no specific order, but the wines that we have today, the white wines that we have, there are 3 of them. There's the Boulder Bank Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, the Singing Tree, which is our Russian River Chardonnay, and then we have a reserve Chardonnay that we make called Dutton. And then we have some of you might have a little bit of rosé that we made briefly for a couple of years out of Napa Valley, which is pretty tough place to make rosé because the price of the grapes is so expensive. And then I also work today in Chile and Argentina, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. And so we're also going to show one of our Argentinian wines. I didn't say that a little bit about who I am. For those that don't know, I am from New Zealand. I'm not from North Dakota or South Dakota. Many people in California, Christ, is that what they sound like up there in South Dakota? They've never met anyone from South Dakota. So I am from New Zealand. I trained in Australia. I lived in Chile back in the late 80s and came to California the first time in 1989. In 1990, I took the job at Simi Winery. Simi is a winery right here in Healdsburg. We're 1 hour north of the Golden Gate Bridge, for those who have never been to Healdsburg. Beautiful little town. We have 38 restaurants, about 208 registered wineries in this town. And this is where I've lived since 1990. I don't work at Simi anymore. I left Simi in 2003 and went to the largest wine company in the world and ran 7 countries for them, 58 wineries. And then in 2008, I went out on my own. So today, we make our own wines. They're all single vineyards, single varietals, single vintage, and all vegan. Everything is vegan. The only wine that is not that is Fidelity, which is a blend that some of us will chance try today. And I consult for 20 plus wineries around the world. Only 2 of them in California, the rest are outside of California. In fact, July 6th, I'm flying to Canada, believe it or not, but they have to send a plane for me because the borders are closed. Anyway, interesting. And I'm also an inventor, so I have 7 patents related to the wine industry. So this is a photo that Susan sent me this morning. So some of you guys know who's in there. Sabrina, you obviously know that, and your daughter. So great to see you. And here's a little video that Claudia, this is Claudia, who's been working with me for 6 years now. I have many friends in Chile. I never knew Claudia, but she worked for a winery that I consulted at, and she ended up being over here in California. She married a gringo, and I met her through the winery that she was working for at the time. And so I've had the privilege of working with Claudia now for 6 years.
Oh, no sound on it, Nick.
It should be. Let me know if you can hear it now.
Susan, y espero que tu restaurante en Antunez esté súper bien en estos tiempos tan complicados. Este es el tiempo en el cual nosotros tenemos que realmente apoyar a las pequeñas empresas familiares como son Antunez y como es también Goldschmidt Vineyards. Espero que estén todos muy sanos, salvos y que se mantengan muy fuertes durante esta época. Hey Sabrina and Jared, I hope you're doing fine. I remember you with a lot of you were super nice when I went to see you guys. I hope that your business is doing well. I know these times are really complicated and difficult, especially for the small businesses, and this is the time when we really need to focus on stay strong, healthy, and safe, and help the small industry like your restaurant, Antunez, and also Goldschmidt Vineyards. Cheers, guys.
So this is my family. I have 5 children, but during the shelter in place, we only had 2 children. This is Hilary, she is going on to UC Davis as soon as they open. And this is her prom dress that she never got to wear because there was no prom, there was no graduation, there was nothing. And this is my son who's at UNR in Reno. And he came back, and when he's not studying, he plays computer games. I've painted a lot of rooms in the house, drunk a lot of wine, and my wife, who runs the business, has been doing a lot of work. But since this, I have another son who's a winemaker who's returned from Argentina. Believe it or not, he and I were both trapped. I was in Chile in March, and he was in Argentina in April, and so we both had to find our ways home. I got one of the last 3 planes out, but the US Embassy actually put on a special plane for our son. And then last night, my other daughter moved home as well because she's a PhD student and teaching classes, and those classes are going to be closed for the fall, it seems. So looking at the first wine I'm going to talk about is the Boulder Bank Sauvignon Blanc. Is that all right, Susan?
Whatever you like.
Okay, so this is New Zealand, which was COVID-free for 10 days, but now they've had a resurgence because some clowns from the UK told a lie and snuck down. They landed in Auckland and drove to Wellington and infected like 10 other people. So suddenly we got an outbreak in New Zealand again. But I'm from Mangawhai, which is right up here. So Auckland is the biggest city in New Zealand. It's about a 3-hour drive here. Where our vineyards are, though, is here in Marlborough. And my wife is from Christchurch, which is down here. So we normally fly from Auckland to Christchurch or Auckland to Blenheim. This is one of the reason why people don't fly to Blenheim is because this is one of the windiest places in the world between the North and South Island. They call this Cook Strait, and the wind just howls through here. And Marlborough is protected because we have 2 mountain ranges. We have one called the Jacksons Range and then one called the Wither Hills. And Richmond Range. This is the Richmond Range to the north. This is the Wairau Valley, where we're focused on. The Awatiri Valley is just to the south. This is much colder, and most of the vineyards are planted in the Awatiri right on this bench here. It's too frosty on this side. But where we are, it's a lot warmer. There's a town of Blenheim, it's about 30,000 people, and Renwick, and all the roads run east-west. There's 4 roads: Rapara Road, Renwick Road, New Renwick, Middle Renwick, and then all the interesting roads run north-south. And where we're situated, this is our vineyard here. This is Cloudy Bay, Alan Scott, Paratai, which is Martua's top wine, Stoneleigh, and then we are right here. So it's a beautiful little place to be. Everything we do down here, so we machine harvest because there's very little labor down there, and also it's Sauvignon Blanc. You can see how green the grass is. You would never see this in California because we don't have the rainfall that New Zealand does. But this taught me a lot. It taught me that having permanent cover is really important for machines if we did go machine harvesting. And so I try to leave, we leave a permanent cover these days in California, but it doesn't look green. So if it does rain, because we sometimes do get rain at the end of October, beginning of November, which was when we're wrapping up Cabernet, it's still important for us to be able to get tractors down the road to pick the grapes. So I do leave a permanent cover. It just doesn't look as green as that. This is the way we harvest in New Zealand. So it's done in a big truck. And literally we're about 10 minutes from any winery in Marlborough. Everything is very condensed and very, very close.
Here we are at the Fitzroy Vineyard, just driving down the road. This is the way we do it in New Zealand. We make our roads just wide enough for our rental cars to fit down. You can see we're not quite ready yet. A little bit of time to go. We've still got the waxy outside to the Sauvignon Blanc. And so we're close to Verizon, but not yet.
So anyway, I love that about New Zealand. You know, we plant our, it's true, you know, some wineries, they'll leave a gap about every 10, 15 rows. They'll make one row a little bit wider so that people can, so the winemakers don't have to get out of their cars and you can drive down, because some of these vineyards are pretty big. Anyway, this wine it's not available everywhere. It's a pretty small volume. It's a single vineyard. So the unique thing about Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc is this wine is a single vineyard. When you go by these big brands like Kim Crawford and Martua and Nobilo, etc., these are all blends from around the region and can be blends from around the county as well. So it's even bigger than that. So this is from one vineyard. And then secondly, the British drink a lot more Sauvignon Blanc than the Americans. And the British want to drink, when they drink Sauvignon Blanc, it comes in the mouth like this. It's steely and lean, but we eat Mediterranean food. So I want to have a little bit more plush and round. And today it's normally sells for $20, and today Sabrina's got it up for $18. So a nice little bargain for you guys as well. And just the 2019 just scored 91 points as well. I'm just going to jump into Chardonnays. I'm not going to go through all these slides. I'm just going to keep it really quick because I know you guys are more into drinking than asking questions. So we have the two Chardonnays that we have today. One of them is called Singing Tree, which is our bigger volume, more available wine. It's we do about 2,000 cases of that. And then the Dutton, which is actually the 17. I've got the wrong label here, but the 17. And this wine we only make about 300 cases. So very, very limited production. And we're very grateful that Sabrina has decided to take and embrace that wine as well. Where we are is Healdsburg, which is the center of the universe, is right here. All things revolve around Healdsburg. For those who go to Napa Valley, please come over to Sonoma County. We're far more farmer friendly and more embracing, and not that we don't have a lot of Napa wine to sell too, but coming to Healdsburg is a very special treat for those who haven't been before. What's unique is, and you can see on this map, is that we basically have four main appellations. We have the Dry Creek area, which is where I live. This is the Alexander Valley. This here is Chalk Hill, and this is the Russian River. So we have four appellations that all meet in the same place. Where the Dutton comes from is in the coldest part of the Russian River. It's in an area called Green Valley. It's a sub-appellation of the Russian River. It's not its own AVA. It's a sub-appellation. And then where we get Singing Tree, which is the other one that we're talking about today, is right here in the south, the southern part of Russian River near the Sevastopol Hills. So it's very cold. The wind comes in the fog comes in two ways. It comes through this thing called the Petaluma Gap, or it comes through Skaggs Springs up here. And so the Alexander Valley is cooled from, or both, all of the appellations in Sonoma County are cooled from the ocean. whereas the Napa Valley is cooled from San Francisco Bay. So Mount St. Helena over here, when the sun comes up on Mount St. Helena, it drags the fog up through the Napa Valley. So the fog comes a little bit later in the day, whereas in Sonoma County, when we wake up in the morning, the fog is already here, so quite different. Where the Chardonnay comes from, I won't bore you too much with that. And but what's key about this, the Singing Tree, or both vineyards really, is they are not clonal. So today, when you drink Chardonnay, all the Chardonnay comes, when we use the term clone, Dijon clone or UC Davis clone, it means that you can track everything back to one plant. And that's how Chardonnay is grown today. So people always talk about white peach or pip fruit. If I hear another Chardonnay described as a white peach or a pip fruit, I think I'm going to throw up. I mean, I've had enough of those sort of wines. So this is, I'm not going to bore you with this, but from the 60s to the 90s, the big change happened in 1988, 1989, when the rootstock that we were using for Chardonnay was dying because of phylloxera. So pre-1988, we had these things called mass selections or field selections. So these cuttings were just taken generically around vineyards, and they were selected for different attributes, whether they were more muscatty or more textural or whatever. But all those vineyards disappeared in the late 80s. And so I took it upon myself to seek out some of these vineyards. And these two wines that you're tasting today, both are from old field selections, or mass selections as we call them. And because they're still on AXL1, and they've survived because they're on this very special soil called a Goldridge sandy loam, and there's no organic matter in these soils, and so the phylloxera don't live in it. The other thing that's unique about the Singing Tree, the regular Russian River Singing Tree, is it's also largely, we do a lot of concrete ferment. So we do about 40%, 50% concrete. I'm gradually increasing that because I'm a huge fan of Chablis, and they don't use any oak and Chablis, and I'm really fascinated with that style of wine and how we can get texture without any SO2, without any additives, and hence that's why I really pride ourselves on being vegan. By the way, I'll also say that I pride ourselves on being sustainable too, and I forgot to mention on the Boulder Bank, you'll notice this symbol here. This is a symbol representing sustainability for New Zealand. The second place in the world where we have sustainability registered is Chile, and the third place is Sonoma County. Sonoma County instituted it 2 years ago. Napa Valley has not. Neither has Central Coast, neither has the Central Valley. I'm very disappointed. But the big thing for us is not using herbicides. And so if you go on my YouTube channel, I posted a video yesterday of rabbits running through my vineyard while I was weed whacking. Anyway. So we do a lot of that. And this is an example of the soil. So you can see that it's like a talcum powder. And the other thing that distinguishes it is if you get a clone of Chardonnay, you would have all these berries would be big berries. And that is obviously not true here. We have big berries and small berries. These berries are actually seedless, and these berries have one seed and these berries have two seeds. So they're quite different. And also, look, this is the big deal for me, is the age of the vine. We all talk about old vine Chardonnay, sometimes old vine Cabernet, but we never talk about old vine Chardonnay. And this to me is an amazing attribute to these vineyards. I'm not going to talk about how we get to these selections, but just real quickly, the main difference is we get smaller berries, smaller yield, and more diversity of flavor. The clones are grown for larger yield and faster accumulation of sugar because they've got to get a lot of crop right. And so just be aware that there are other options out there. You don't just have to drink the standard Russian River Chardonnays because basically they're clonal. And if we want to preserve some of the integrity of Chardonnay and some of these old vineyards, please seek out Singing Tree because you're supporting some of these growers that have no other option. And to rip out and replace these vineyards today is a very expensive proposition, but unfortunately many of them are getting pulled because of the yield. These yields that we have in old mass selections are very low. Stylistically, this is the way Russian River tastes today. As I said, sort of stone fruit, pip fruit, you know, a little bit of structure, a little bit of texture. The Singing Tree though, because we ferment a little bit in concrete and because it's the C selection, a mass selection, field selection. It's a little bit more melon. So C is spelled S-E-E. And that selection is always a little bit more melon, subtropical, passion fruit type character. And then the style of the Dutton is more on the fleshy, textural side. So when I say structural wine, can you imagine when you drink a glass of wine, it comes in the mouth like this, okay? When you drink a textural wine, it comes in the mouth like this. So it comes in broad and finishes broad, it has all this weight and all this textural voluptuousness and things like that. And that's what you'll see in the Dutton, and that's why it's uniquely different. So today we're showing you the 2018 Chardonnay. This got 91 points, and normally this wine sells for about 25 bucks. And today Sabrina's doing it at 20. I don't know who's making any money here, dude. But anyway, thank you, Sabrina. And then the Dutton normally sells for, you won't be able to find, it's very rare to be able to find a Dutton labeled Chardonnay for under 50 bucks because it's a very highly sought after vineyard. And I've been making wine from this vineyard since 1990 because we used to buy some of the fruit for Simi Winery. And a friend of mine who's a winemaker is gradually giving up on making a Dutton because he's planted his own vineyard, and I'm gradually taking over his fruit. So it's a great little exercise for us. So today, I mean, normally this wine would sell for 50 bucks, but Sabrina's selling it today for 40. So again, a pretty good value and very limited release. This wine is 100% oaked though. 50% of it is in new and the rest of it is in 1- and 2-year-old. So it is a little bit more vanilla, a little bit more creamy, etc. So I'll take a pause. There is any questions? Anyone want to unmute themselves and participate?
Sure, we have a question.
Yeah.
We've gone to Sonoma several times. We like it better than Napa, just an FYI. It's not pretentious. And so, and they're so friendlier than Napa, but have you ever, and we went a couple times to the Dry Creek passport event. Have you ever participated in that?
You know, that's a good question. We have many, well, what's it? PC, pre-COVID. We did not.
PC, definitely.
It's very PC. We did not, but there's many tastings out here. The Dry Creek one, the Passport Weekend, which you're referring to, but there's Barrel Tasting Weekend. I mean, we probably have, in the summer, I think every second weekend there is one, but Passport's probably the biggest. And we, up until recently, we didn't have a tasting room, but now we do. We actually have one in Dry Creek. We opened it 2 weeks ago. So
nice.
yeah, it's a big deal. 2 weeks ago, right in the middle of the COVID. So we, I'll give the address at the end. Susan's holding it up right now, but I can, I've got a little slide at the end that I can show you guys. But yeah, those events are really cool. So if you get to come out, book early, especially Passport.
Well, we're originally from Southern California, so we'd go up there and check it out. And like I said, we love Sonoma. It's just the food's great, the wine's great, the people are great. So all around.
Yeah, try and come to the barrel tasting weekend because Passport's become a little bit too popular.
Yeah, we stopped going this past year. Well, they didn't have it this year, but we decided not to go because we went to all of them. Now what? We need to explore.
Yeah, go to Barrel Tasting Weekend. That's a really cool event because what we do is we bring barrels into the tasting room and then we sample the next vintage. Well, the vintage that we've just had, so people actually can buy ahead of time if they'd like. Sort of,
we're loving your Sauv right now. We're loving the Sauv. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, really, you should be. I know it's the perfect wine for sitting outside. We drank a little heavy last night, so
that's why you're still on coffee.
I'm still on coffee. I've got all the wines here right in front of me. I'm wondering which one I'm going to open. So I'm going to open one of the reds probably. But yeah, believe it or not, one of my daughters moved home last night with her husband, as I said. So we drank a little much. Yeah.
Well, and Sabrina paired it with a mango pineapple mint salad. It's fantastic.
Perfect.
Really good.
Great job.
Mango is the way to go. That is absolutely right. No, I'm serious. That's
good. Wow.
Yeah, no, we do a lot of that. I think, and I really like because mango is perfect, but then if you come down one to like a more of an orange melon, and you do an orange melon with bacon wrapped in it, or and then like a little bit of lemon juice just to bring out the acid a bit more. Because if you add a little bit, that's just, for me, when you're drinking wine, you always put the food, what you want is to have the food with more of it than the wine, right? So that's why if you're drinking a young red wine, the secret about drinking a young red wine is to eat eggplant, because eggplant is really, really bitter. It's got more tannin in it, and it'll actually make a young red wine taste sweet. So if you think about that with Sauvignon Blanc, if you put some like lemon or something with a little bit more, something a little bit more acid, it'll actually make the Sauvignon Blanc taste sweet when it's not. But it's a way to trick the palate. The other thing I like is, especially when you drink this guy, one of the stories I often tell is when I was making wine in Portugal. When you hang out in Portugal in 1992, you know, and the reason why people are skinny in Portugal is not because the economy sucks, it's because the food is really hard to eat, right? They eat these barnacles, they're about this long, and you got to get three of them. You got to get 3 of them for a mouthful, and it's 110 degrees, and you're sitting outside and you're drinking port, and it's lunchtime. And I said, guys, can we get a glass of white wine here? And the winemaker said to me, Nick, we don't make white wine in Portugal. You know, I'm over there as a consultant for LVMH, because we were owned by LVMH. So I had to be very polite. Anyway, a young lady walks by. Sir, don't worry, I'll get you a glass of white wine. She brings it out up to here, you know, like my mother, filled up to the top. The condensation's pouring off it. I'm eating barnacles. It's 110 degrees. I get the glass, and I go, you know, the enamel on my teeth is gone. The roof of my mouth is gone. I'm like, holy cow, what is that, you know? But it's this Vinho Verde. I didn't know what a Vinho Verde was, which is a green wine. But that's what I try to put in this wine, is so that when you drink it, you get that, you know, am I hungry or am I thirsty? And this is when you talk to chefs, because I can sell any of you guys 1 glass of wine, easy. But can I sell you 2 glasses of wine?
Right.
So you've got to have that, you know, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I suddenly want to eat something, or do I want to drink something? You know, and that's what I really try to put in this wine. So I trick the palate a little bit. There's a technique that I do that sort of perks the palate up. So yeah, cool.
Good. Yeah.
All right, we're going to jump on to making wines with my daughters. I'm going to show you a couple of quick little, but please feel free to interrupt, or because I can't see you when I'm shooting here, so you can always just come unmute and yell at me. So these are the labels that I make with my daughters. So we started doing this in the year 2000. I was telling my children that we didn't make how to make wine without electricity, because in Chile, when Pinochet was in power in the late 80s, and I was living in Chile with Pinochet, it was an interesting time, rightly or wrongly. One of the things he would sometimes do was cut off the electricity. And so we had to make wine without power. So we started doing this. The 5 kids and I, we hand picked half a ton. We hand destemmed it. We pigeage, punched down, and we made the wine, basket pressed. And so we call it 5 Gold Hands Unplugged. It's a pretty cool family project. So we started making wine with Chelsea. So when Chelsea was 2, I traced her around her head, and then she colored it in. And that's where the label comes from. And just recently, about 2 years ago, Susan will attest to this. I think that it was 2 years ago, we updated the label a little bit to give the girls some more maturity and some hair, because they were quite young when we started doing this project. And you'll notice that Catherine faces a different direction, because Catherine is the middle child, and we all know what middle children are like. Middle children are liars, manipulators, bullshit artists, you know, the perfect salesperson, as you can imagine, like Susan, biting her tongue. And we started making Hilary. She's our youngest daughter, as I said earlier. Where the vineyards are in the Alexander Valley is the furthest north we have is Forefathers. Staircase, we haven't released a wine from there yet, but we're in the process. Fidelity, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, is from Mid-Valley. And then Chelsea is from a little bit to the south. And then Kate and Yeoman, which are at top cabs. You'll see this is Healdsburg. The blue dot is where Healdsburg is, where I'm sitting right now. and the red dot is my house, which is in Dry Creek. So the Alexander Valley looks like a Y. So this hill here is called Fitch Mountain, and that's what blocks off the Russian River. So the Russian River flows around the mountain now and out to Jenner instead of into San Francisco Bay. There's a picture of the 5 kids last harvest. This is Kate, this is Hilary, this is Chelsea. And I'm gonna just quickly talk about the Chelsea, although not all of you have that wine. This is a very rare wine. It's because it's 100% Merlot. And don't tell me you don't drink Merlot, all right? Merlot is fabulous. It's, we make it in a way that we make Cabernet. So it's very full, very rich, and this used to be a very famous single vineyard wine that that was made for somebody else. And this is the 2018. You may have the 17. I'm not sure, because the 18 is a fairly recent release. I can't remember what Susan told us, and I went to print it out.
I went to the 18 actually.
Oh, you are? Okay. So 18 is a very plush vintage. 17's got a little bit more structure in it because it was a cooler vintage. 18 was a riper vintage, so it's a little rounder. And Chelsea got married, and we released a wine called Lady Ella a couple of years ago too. So Lady Ella is a rosé, and I think some of you, Sabrina's actually got a glass of it right now. And this is from the Napa Valley, and we don't do this in every year. We only do it in very few years because the price of Napa Cabernet is extremely expensive. So making it into rosé is not exactly a bank. The people that lend me money is not their favorite idea of us making rosé. But hence it is a little bit more expensive, and it's a little fuller than you would typically get for rosé. And anyway, her middle name is Ella, and that's where the name Lady Ella came from. The 2017 was rated 96 points by the San Francisco Chronicle tasting, which is a big deal out here. The 2018 has not yet been rated, but it has been sent out. But trust me, it's out here in California. It's behind Duckhorn and Decoy. We battle it out with St. Francis and AVV, which are so it's usually number 4 or 6 in the most popular Merlots. Yes, Susan.
Just to back up, I wanted to mention, I think California is not making this anymore. We have no more in California. South Dakota was one of maybe 2 or so states that got a few cases. So I think Debbie or Sabrina, I think there's probably only 30 bottles left, 36, something like that, of this wine. If you like rosé, this is a beauty that you're not going to see anywhere else. So, anyway, thanks.
And we made it for her wedding, and that was for her engagement and then her wedding. So this is the Merlot. This is Chelsea Merlot, and I'm not going to do that.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Goldschmidt, and after my workouts, I always crave a nice glass of Merlot. So I'm obviously drinking my favorite Merlot, the Chelsea Goldschmidt. This one is 2017 from Alexander Valley. Reminds me of back home in Sonoma County while I'm here in isolation in the Bay Area. So let's see how it is. It's the perfect wine for isolation. Drink by yourself, or if you need a glass after spending the day with your family, it's always there. So let's see how it is. It smells like black cherry and pomegranate and chocolate. Yum. And it tastes like strawberries and plum. It's delicious. I hope you really enjoy it, and I hope it keeps you company in your quarantine. Stay safe, everyone. Cheers.
So they were, my children all got on together through workout routines. It started with my son Luke, who was stuck in Argentina, so they were doing workout routines amongst themselves. It was quite interesting. So, you know, when you're stuck in a 1-bedroom apartment and you can't go outside because you're in the hotspot of the COVID, you know, this is what you do. Work out and drink wine, I guess. So these are the Cabernets that we make, changing subject now, changing into Cabernet. So we make a number from Oakville, and we're going to talk quickly about Hilary mainly. We're going to talk quickly about Catherine, and if we have time, the plus. Yes, Susan.
In the menu, we are doing a Malbec next, or do you want to talk about that after these? I know you're trying to talk about
We
something.
can, I can stop. We can,
Sabrina,
finish.
maybe Sabrina's got some comments. Sabrina? Just,
Nick Goldschmidt here. I
Sorry, guys, I
am
have to-
in the Catherine Alexander Valley
Can't stop it now.
Vineyard. Sometimes I pinch myself that I'm still making wine here after all this time. But really unique. I don't know if you can see in here. No, you can't
shouldn't
up
have
here,
changed it, Steve.
perhaps. So these clusters.
sorry.
Yeah, I blew it. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Sabrina, does Sabrina want to say anything or not?
She'll need to unmute.
G'day. Right there. Here in the beautiful.
All right, here we go, Chacras. So this is the 2017. This is the wine that we're pouring today, but actually this is us in 2020. I'm sitting here with Luke. We took this photo when I was in Argentina in end of February. I was there in the end of February. I consult for a number of wineries there, but
I'll just leave it here. So when you're ready.
I don't know if you guys know the Mendoza appellation very well, but it's a little bit confusing. So this is this side here. You can see these are the Andes. This is the border between Chile and Argentina. And Mendoza is this appellation here, and then San Juan is this appellation here. There are more grapes grown in San Juan than we do in Mendoza, but the town of Mendoza is right here, and the central valley, which is right here. I know it's very confusing, small map. Actually, we can. I won't do it. I can't do that, Susan. It's fixed. So this is Oakville Valley. This is the Central Valley, which is the expensive area, and this is the eastern region, and then this is San Rafael. So if you look at the main regions, the eastern region is the most popular. This is where a lot of the bulk is grown. This is where this would be the equivalent of our Central Valley in California, and we grow other varieties there like Bonarda. So a lot of grapes are grown in Bonarda. I don't know why that thing's there. And the town of Mendoza, actually, right out of town of Mendoza, about 20 minutes out, there's a little town called Chacras, and that's where the name of the wine comes from, which is where all the winemakers live. And so on Saturdays, it's quite cool. In the summer, I can just sit there Saturdays and Sundays in a couple of coffee shops in Chacras, and all the winemakers walk by. But about an hour out of, well, it used to take us 3 hours to get up into Tunajan. So Tunajan is the capital of the Oakville Valley, which is the third appellation. The fourth appellation is San Rafael. We don't care about San Rafael. But up here in Tupangado, in Tunajan, we have the Tunajan River and the Mendoza River. And Tunajan is, I don't want to get too complicated. It's the lower piece. Then we get Vista Flores and then Altamira. And we're up in Altamira, which is the highest appellation and also the oldest. In 1990, we started planting in Tupangado, and in 1995, we started planting in La Consulta. So that makes up the Oakville Valley. And so today we're in the rarefied air of Altamira. And that's why when you drink this wine, it's really interesting because, and I didn't think about this until later, is an easier way to explain it, because when you drink wines from the Russian River, what you're drinking is coastal influence. And so you get a lot of fresh fruit, because you can imagine the ocean mitigates the heat from the appellation, so it keeps the appellation relatively cool. It's the same thing where I work in Canada in the Okanagan. We have 4 lakes, so we grow vineyards near the lakes. Well, this is completely different. The way that we're growing grapes here is we're basing it on altitude. So latitude-wise, we're fairly far north, but because we're so high up, we're at in feet. We're not as high as Lake Tahoe, but we're about 4,000 feet. So it's fairly high up. And so you get this coastal characteristic. And when I say that, I mean, you get a lot of red berry, red cherry, brightness, good acidity. and at the same time you get this plushness and richness that you typically get from Malbec. So it's a really unique project. And the other thing I'll say is that it's 100% Malbec. There's a lot of other varieties that are often blended into Malbec, like Cote, which is the French clone of Malbec, which is not really Malbec, and Bonarda, which gives color and high pH and makes it more textural. Bonarda is a really interesting wine. If you get a chance to try Bonarda, it's huge. It's a great wine to try, but it's often used as a blender to Americanize the wines that come to the US, but we don't do any of that. This is 100% Malbec. And this is a picture of the vineyard. I took this last July when I was there. Obviously, I'm not going to be there in this July, which is typically when I go out there, and I prune a lot of grapes while I'm out there, and here we are.
G'day, Nick Goldschmidt here. I'm the winemaker for Chacras, which is Oakville Valley Malbec that we make up here in Argentina. And I'm sitting here. This is the young vine. These vines are about 50 years old, versus one of the other wines that we work on called Pedrusco, which is about 80 years old. So here we have a few more clusters. This is Franco, so it's grown on its own roots. So this is some of the oldest Malbec that you'll ever find in Argentina. And we're up here in Altamira, which is at a little bit about 1,200 meters. So it's relatively cool appellation, so you're going to get a lot of fresh fruit, a lot of vibrancy, very, very purple hue in the wine itself. So Chacras is the name of the town where all the winemakers live in downtown Mendoza, but we're up here in the Oakville Valley, which is about an hour away from Chacras itself. Beautiful wine, 2020 vintage, looking awesome. Hope you get a chance to enjoy it.
Yes, I hope you got a chance to try that. Okay, Susan, we've got about 10, 15 minutes left. Which wine would you like me to talk about now?
Last thing I want to say, though, about this is that there are only 600 cases made of this. And again, Okoboji Wines is nice enough, and Sabrina she knows her great wines, and this is a unique opportunity to buy this wine because it's a very small batch and not everywhere. It's not that available. We do have the Hilary Oakville Cabernet with the last course. I think it's probably a good idea.
We can do that.
It's paired with beautiful marinitos, and it's got a dark chocolate mousse infused with blackberry. It's going to be amazing with the lime. Hilary Oakville Cabernet.
Right there is the beautiful Nickel Winery and their vineyard, and that's Hilary down there at that end. And there's Opus, beautiful Opus, out here in the Oakville, getting ready to pick Hilary tomorrow. Cabernet Sauvignon, Oakville, Napa Valley.
So you can imagine that we have a lot of famous neighbors. Oakville is made up of, Harlan, Scarecrow, Screaming Eagle, Silver Oak, Minor, Groth, Plumpjack, Inglenook, Mondavi, Opus, blah, blah, blah. I mean, anyway, and you're sandwiched right there between two very famous vineyards. The Nickel sells for about $250 to $500 a bottle. And Opus, of course, is $380 at Costco. I saw it. So we're not at Costco. We certainly don't do the same volume. And actually, this wine scored 93 points, which was a big coup, because normally wine writers don't give good scores to value wines, which is very interesting. And there is no way you can buy an Oakville Cabernet cheaper or better value than this. The next wine is the next best value would be $75. What was that, Susan? 94 points.
Well, it's normally around $50 in
sorry.
national retail, but you're able to get it for $40. Thank you again, Sabrina, for offering this amazing pricing.
Actually, it's normally 55 out here in California, actually. So, yeah.
Here in the beautiful old vineyard in Oakville, this is the Charming Creek vineyard that we use for Hilary. Just a beautiful old vineyard. You can see we use permanent cover. We don't do any weed spraying. You can still see that the weeds are underneath all the vines. We do this because we have good water holder capacity, nice water penetration when it does rain, and also a buildup of organic matter. Just a beautiful old vineyard out here in the heart of Oakville, planted to the old trellis system that they used to use.
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more rare because unfortunately the vineyard is so old now that the yields are going way down. So at some point that vineyard will be removed, but it's extremely old vineyard. The location is fantastic. It is an old mass selection. And as you can see, it's not grown on the new vertical trellis systems. It's grown on the traditional California sprawl with a couple of wires thrown on it just to lift it up a little bit. So very, very unique wine. Not many of those vineyards left in Oakville anymore, I can assure you of that. And we pick it a little bit differently. We pick it a little bit earlier than most of my brothers around the place because because I want to keep the alcohol in check. If you remember back, the end of Prohibition was 1933. I saw it, and then I drank a bottle of 1934 Simi Cabernet, and the alcohol on that wine was 12.5%. And there was about 10 wineries that did varietal wines back then. Most people still doing blends because that's the way the Italians would blend Zinfandel with Fitzroy, Carignan, Mourvedre, etc. So other wineries that were doing that at the time were wineries that you would know would be Inglenook and BV. Both of those wineries were producing, and both of their alcohols were under 13 as well. So why can't we make wines under 13 today? And so the problem is Americans don't like drinking green, spicy wines, and Cabernet is green and spicy. But when you punch the alcohol right up, you get rid of the varietal character, and it becomes more and more like Merlot. So if you don't like green and spicy, you should actually drink Merlot. I mean, don't knock it. I mean, Pomerol, or Right Bank is not completely bad, not completely shabby. A little bit of Aubryon or Petrus is not bad. It's made from Merlot. So don't be put off by being scared. But yeah, I am actually making a conscious effort about lowering the alcohol in the Napa Valley, in Oakville for sure. Susan, what next one? You want to do, Catherine?
No, I think maybe just some comments from people, and then maybe we'll talk about the plus, because that's in that deluxe pack on the finish. That's a rare opportunity to buy those.
Yeah, so we have
maybe come off of the slides for a minute so we can chat.
Okay, I would like to have Sabrina make some comments, please. She's been very active in the background.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, that's funny. I didn't know you all could see me. So we're just we're listening to you, Nick, which is great. We're all having a great time. We're sharing the foods as well and enjoying them. And I'm getting texts from people going, "We can see you. We love the pigs and the outdoor setting and stuff." So I was like, "Oh, it's a good thing I'm not doing anything weird." Or something,
Can you show us the pig? I'm so interested in seeing how they turned out.
They're delicious.
Okay, so this is also called pan dulce, which is not it's a sweet bread, but this is Mexican sweet bread. I used to get these when I was a kid, and they're little Mexican breads. This was my favorite. My dad would bring them home on Sundays, along with menudo and various other things on Sundays. That was a special occasion. And I thought this was the one you and I went back and forth with, Susan, on what to dip it in. But it pairs beautifully with Hilary. I have to say, it is lovely. I wish you could try it.
Yeah. But Sabrina, you paired it with a very dark, low sugar chocolate French mousse, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How is it tasting?
I think everybody here at my table is loving it. I hope everybody else is. Thumbs up.
Did you make it yourself, Sabrina?
Pardon?
Did you make it yourself, Sabrina?
I have to say that the baking type of thing is my daughter-in-law. She's our pastry chef in the family. I take no credit for these, except I told her, we made them a couple of times, and I said, "That's not it. That's not it." And she got it, and I said, "Woo!"
I would love to, as being a person that's been intimidated into becoming vegan, I'd love the recipe, assuming it's not might be the best way to eat a pig.
Rosalie would agree. She's here with us today, and she would agree with you.
But Sabrina's putting out a cookbook that we can all buy, right, Sabrina?
I am. It's in the works. Yes, it will. It'll be a little bit, in my spare time.
Right. That.
There's none of that. That doesn't exist, I can tell you.
I have great people that help me though, so that's what we look for. I give them all my ideas and they work with me, just like the pigs. I said, no.
Right? That's
Yes.
the beauty of having a team.
Perfect. I hope everybody's enjoying. I hope.
So much.
Good.
Yeah, one thing I would say about
The wine was great. Everything paired great, and yes, loved it all. Great information too. Thank you.
Yeah, Nick, this is fun. You're fun.
Hey, Sabrina, are you gonna touch a little bit about the wine bundles? I was looking at some of the ones that weren't mentioned. That I guess it's called tier number 4. It's a library select.
Yes, those were some of the ones that Nick was talking about at the beginning. We
the
thought
beginning.
we
Oh, yes.
would offer these packages of what he's got, limited, of course, but for some freaking amazing
Great prices. Yeah, I saw it. I went, what?
She knows.
Yeah.
I'm like wine. So.
You eat the sauce.
Yeah.
And you drink the cab.
So yes, they are all on orderantunez.com. They're all there already packaged up, and you guys can get on there and order that. And then I'll be working with Debbie Mickelry.
Oh, yeah. We saw it. Look.
Yeah, she will take care of those for me, and yeah, we'll make sure everybody has their wine cellars stocked.
And just so you guys know, these are not prices. You can't get these in a retail shop. These are better than what you can get anywhere, absolutely anywhere.
Yes.
Like in the last pack, this plus wine, this has got almost 4 years of old. And it's got, it's normally 150 on the shelf. And this package is $3.95, and you're getting 2 plus wines in that package.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that is a great wine. We've had it at the restaurant. We're almost sold out of it again. So it's great.
My mom doesn't really
I have a question for Nick.
But I still
we're interested in the Sauvignon Blanc, but Sean's actually from England. Will you sell it to us?
I did.
Sorry, Peter, I missed that last comment. Sabrina was talking.
I was going to say we're interested in the Sauv Blanc. However, Sean's from England. Will you
say sorry, not a somm word.
Well, the funny thing is, Peter, I have 4 passports, and one of them is English. So my father's from from Manchester, and we were very disappointed when Liverpool cleaned up yesterday. I mean, Chelsea should never have beaten Liverpool. It was very disaster.
Well, we have a daughter in Chester, and Sean's actually from Northeast Wales, the Liverpool area. So,
oh my God!
You don't want to be on camera.
Anyway, I don't care. I'm watching rugby because in New Zealand we can play rugby with full stadiums and everything right now. It was 80,000 people at the first game last week.
So, Sabrina, do you have any more comments at all?
Answer my question.
My
question, can Sean buy Sauvignon?
No, we are, the only thing that we haven't tried at our table is the Malbec, so we're going to have that along with the meatballs, which I know because I did a test recipe with that and a tasting, so I'm hoping everybody is enjoying that. And I apologize for my word, freaking fabulous, my fabulous word, so if that offended anybody, I'm so sorry. I was just excited.
One second, Sabrina. I think Peter Young had a question. Can everybody mute? Maybe Sabrina, if you mute.
It was a joke question. I just think he hadn't answered the question whether Sean would be permitted to buy Sauvignon Blanc because she's from Britain. She said you don't sell them. It was a joke question.
Yeah, but the answer was really no. She needs to be shown.
I will drink it.
Sorry.
More than I support Liverpool. I really would.
My great grandfather was president of Man United. He was the mayor of Manchester, and so there's this big thing about Man United. So I'm a Man City fan.
Well, there you go.
And Sabrina, you saw that wonderful greeting from Claudia.
Yes, I did. Oh, I miss her. Her and I are supposed to cook together one of these days. Well, actually, she said I would cook and she would serve the wine. So
She loves you.
I would, yes, I really made a connection with her at our last wine tasting, which was about a year ago now. And yes, would really like to spend some time with her.
Wonderful. We'll have to bring her back out, maybe with Nick in tow.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
my.
or vice versa. I'll bring my crew and we'll come invade you guys.
We appreciate time apart. We're together all the time.
Well, kind of that, we're a family restaurant, so we totally understand that. Yes, I'm with all three of my kids and my sister and brother-in-law and various people of my family. So yeah, we appreciate time alone too, or apart.
Yeah.
But amen for family, all in all. That's
Yes,
the best thing ever, is the family.
They're the best. They are the best.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if Nick, if you want to mention the tasting room, that's kind of new.
Oh yeah, I'll put up the slide here.
Oh, it's the official one. Cool. They haven't even told us yet, so it's like.
What do you mean?
Well, you told us, but we haven't seen this fancy thing that you're going to show us here. So.
Okay, so here's this is how you can get a hold of me. Goldschmidt Vineyards on YouTube. This is my Facebook site, Goldschmidt Vineyards again, and Instagram is Goldschmidt_Vineyards if you want to jump on there. But if you want to come to the tasting room, it's called the Pour House. It's at 4791 Dry Creek Road. It's a joint tasting room, so you can try other people's wines as well. But there's just 3 wineries in there, and as I said, we just opened up. We just opened up last week and 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Because we don't own a fancy winery for you guys to visit. That's how we get you great pricing without the icky price tag. But now you'll have a place to go when you come out where you can actually try our wines, which is cool. Thank you, Nick and Yolan.
Oh, no, anytime. So just wrapping up then, so everything we do is, Cabernet is really our main focus, but today we showed you another couple of wines. Everything is vintage, vineyard, varietal, and vegan, except for Fidelity, which is a blend. And then these are real people, real stories, real vineyards. And we've taken it upon ourselves to sort of look after a lot of these growers that lost their way when the large corporations or larger wineries decided to buy land, and they exited contracts with a lot of these small growers. So these family business, these vineyards have been in families for a long, long time. It's just becoming really, really hard for them to be able to sell grapes rather than have to make wine. So when you go to France and Italy and Germany, there's 2 ways to buy wine. It's either farm to gate or negociant. And there's nothing in between. And right now we have a lot of vineyards that are sort of in between. They want to focus on quality and growing grapes and not necessarily having to make wine. So that's what we do. So that's why we have a number of different brands, a number of different vineyard designates. It's because we're looking after a lot of small growers. I've been working on these vineyards since 1990. You often hear about, young up-and-coming winemakers, 40-year-old winemaker. Well, these guys haven't even been making wines for 10 years, let alone from the same vineyard. So we've been making wines from some of these vineyards for 30 years. Same family, same winery, same winemaker, etc. So it's a great privilege to be able to work with them and bring you a product that if you want to drink a wine 20 years from now, I can show you a wine I made from there 20 years ago. And then all the neighbors are really well known in the Russian River, Alexander Valley, and Oakville. I could have put up New Zealand and Argentina as well. But yeah, come and visit us. And thanks for spending your brunch, Sabrina, with us. We really appreciate it.
We'll have to look at the barrel tasting
We will look into barrel tasting
event.
Yeah.
Well,
What was the question, Nick?
Fine. We got a tiny little bird. It's not.
No, just thanks for having me on, and I appreciate you spending brunch with me.
Well,
Absolutely, thank
I was
you.
just like,
No problem.
And normally Nick usually finishes or has a tasteful sheep joke, but I don't know if he's got anything prepared.
No, it looks like it needs to be a pig joke, you know.
Nick, these are beautiful wines. We're tasting the Malbec right now. It's just beautiful.
Thank
It
you.
is very good. Yes, cheers, sir.
Yeah, and I think the Malbec is probably the most versatile as far as food. You know, you can put a lot of foods with that wine because of the brightness and the acidity and the, you know.
which one?
We're eating Sabrina's meatballs, the meatballs she prepared. It was very good.
The Albondigas.
Yeah.
Yes, the Albondigas with a nice smoky chipotle sauce that they cooked in. And it's beautiful with your Malbec. Just perfect. Claudia would be happy.
You can send some by slow post.
Very slow.
When I come out there, like I said, I'll have to cook for you guys. I will do
That's
that.
fine.
I love it.
We would be honored. We would be.
Thank you. Yes, it's been wonderful, and thank
Do you
you,
need a sous chef?
Nick, so much for.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
It's
I
been
want to
wonderful.
go, Sabrina. I want to go with you.
You want to
Me
go with me?
When Sabrina
we're gonna
does
have
that
to just
cooking
get a
out there,
trip.
I want to go.
And Deb has to go too. Deb, you too.
Yeah, Deb, you
I'm
too.
always ready to go. Absolutely.
You know?
Sabrina and I love our trips together.
We do. We
I haven't
cooked
been on a
last
trip
trip,
yet, that's
and we
We
had a
cooked
great
last trip. Yes, we did. It was fun.
Yep.
Just for everybody to know, if you want to order anything, just get the orders to Sabrina and we'll get them back to you within the next couple weeks. So just let her know what you guys want.
It's at orderantunez.com. Everybody's pretty familiar that's on the wine tasting with us today. Yes, and we'll make sure we take care of you.
Absolutely.
And Nick and Sabrina and Debbie, thank you